Warm Neuhoff welcome for our guests. Who are actually no guests at all. They're part of the family.
I hope so.
Absolutely.
Feels like it.
But thank you both for coming. And again, Rick and Pat and I were the tri-chairs of the campaign this year. And as we all know, the United Way, so there's a lot of folks in our community that otherwise wouldn't receive services, or certainly wouldn't receive the same level of services or the amount of services. And those of us that are able to do extra special things for others, we kind of have an obligation to do so. And Jean carries that mission on better than anyone that I know, and it's been my pleasure to work with Jean on many boards and organizations over the years. And volunteers like Pat and Rick just make it that much more fun. And so it has been a pleasure to be on the tour with Rick and certainly Pat, being one of the Neuhoff gang now that he's on the radio every Saturday morning and loving life that way. For you guys and for Pat and the rest of the United Way, the Neuhoff family this year decided not to send buckets of popcorn or baskets of fruit or peanuts and things like that to the respective stations and whatnot. They thought that the money would be better used if it went directly into the communities that we serve. So the Neuhoffs selected one organization in all of our markets and have written a $1,000 check to that organization. And for Maine County, it was slam dunk. It was the United Way. So on behalf of Jeff Neuhoff, his wife Beth, his mom and dad Louise and Roger, and the brothers and sisters, Kevin Anfield has a presentation of a check for $1,000 to the United Way.
Excellent.
Thank you so very much.
Awesome.
You know I'm not supposed to be very often, but this is wonderful, and it really does just show the support that you've always given United Way and all of us, not only from your own personal time and efforts, but from the station, having us on the radio on a regular basis, having the Brown Bag Day last year, the donations from the employees, and the list goes on. You all are wonderful heroes to us in the community, so this just kind of tops it off. Thank you very much.
So we think it's better than popcorn, peanuts, wine, or whatever it is that comes walking through the door.
Well, personally, I have to say so too.
Yeah.
Well, I speak for the thousands that do receive the services, because without United Way going well with the programs from the agencies, we would be in much worse shape. We have calls every day from folks who need help, and right now, especially the last couple of years, people that have never had to ask for help before. And that's one, every call gets you, but that's one that people are just like, I have no idea what to do. I've never been in this circumstance. Where do I go? What do I do? So we have the agencies waiting to serve. See, I wasn't so speechless after all.
Rick, any thoughts?
I'm not surprised. Well, what Gene was said is exactly what I was going to say, because that is the last couple of years that I've been involved, has been the people who, when I find out that you find out these programs whenever you're the chair, and those are the folks that we have people that are needing help all the time, but the new folks that are just scared to death and not going to be able to make a payment, they're not going to be able to feed their family, they have no idea where to turn because they've never been in that situation, and there are places they can go, and that's, in this day and age, that's one of the coolest things I think United Way can help with.
Pat always likes to tell a story about the little brown-eyed girl down at the women's shelter, and a few years ago, when Pat, I think, chaired for the first time when he walked around with his bottle of soda, we went down to the women's shelter, YFRC, and there was this little girl looking out the window, and she made a comment in Pat's presence that this was the first time in her life she felt safe, because her mother had left a violent situation and took the kids into the women's shelter, and there they were. But that's the United Way.
That's exactly.
That's the United Way. Helping the kids down there is the United Way. What goes on at Salvation Army, Boys and Girls Club gets a lot of the press because it's warm and it's fuzzy, but there's 20 programs that go. There's 20 different agencies and 40 some odd programs in Vermilion County that get dollars from the United Way, and it would not be there if it wasn't for the United Way.
Well, you mentioned Salvation Army. That is one we refer people to the most, almost every day, because they have a lot of stopgap. They have a lot of crisis assistance, rent assistance, shelter, food, water. So we send people there all the time.
And I love the presentation we gave 2 years ago at Mervis, where Katie from Pure Court, passes out in the middle of the presentation, and she wakes up after the Mervis folks scramble around. And this was out at the yard, so you think about the dirtiest, grimiest, toughest jobs in Danville. That's got to be in the top 10. And these folks are scrambling around. It's cute Katie. She didn't go to the ground because we kept her from. Gene got her.
I'm shouting, Mike!
She's yelling at my name. I
She's
look over and
passing
Katie
out.
starts to wobble and weeble, and she grabs her, and I come over, and it's the two of us holding her. And
Yep.
then these guys, these all rough and tumble folks in their coveralls and sweat, and 7 o'clock in the morning, and they've been working all night, in the yard. They're scrambling around to get towels and scooting chairs down, and we get her, plopped down and her feet up, and and she finally comes to. And when she comes to, after the ambulance has been called and all that, she wants to know if the presentations are over yet, and if they're not, can she give her presentation about Pure Court? And she did, with a towel around her head and her feet up in the air, and you could have heard a pin drop for those rough and tumble folks and then they stepped right up and they gave very generously.